Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how are you feeling today?
It's going well. I sort of like this, actually. I like the Conan O'Brien podcast. They always like you say, I feel X about being Conan O'Brien's friend because it's Conan O'Brien needs a friend. And so I feel like when we're doing this, it's sort of like, how do you feel today? And I have to be like stimulated or something like that.
Well, it beats rolling right along, which is what you say 99.9%
Rolling along.
Well,
of the sometimes time. That's all you have. So we're after the Ontario Cup number 1. We call this the Ontario World Championships of the World because we are the center of the world here in Ontario. And yeah, it was a great race. Yeah, we had a good mix of a couple of top pros like Dylan Kerr and also Tyler Clark were there racing in the men's field. And then we had some of our top young riders as well who are very, very fast. The U17, I think it's the U17 and U19 women are just so fast. And there's like a good pack of them. So it's really good pack racing too. So that was really, really cool to watch for the short track and the cross country. And then I also raced in the elite race as well, participated alongside.
I feel like you're not the sweep, but you're sort of the sweep in that like beating you, I feel like has become kind of this like standard for the young men that you're racing against.
I don't know. The standard maybe, I don't know if that's inflation or a lowering standard, but yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess there's probably like a target or something for some of those newer riders and the younger ones.
Well, it's always funny because I'm definitely, we're getting a little older. We're older now. And in the feed zone, luckily, like most people know us, but there's definitely a few people that are like, oh, is your kid racing? And I'm like, nope, I'm here feeding my husband.
Well, and so I need to start this campaign because no one else is going to start it for me. But I think next year is my 25th year racing elite in Ontario Cup. So not even just like racing mountain bikes, but this is the 25th year of racing elite mountain bike, I guess, in Ontario. So I was like, I think I'm due for like a career plate because I think that's got to be a record. No one else has put in that amount of time into that. So we will start that campaign and what is that, like the petition? We'll petition for that. Yeah.
But do you go with the old school plate 69 or the new school plate 6?
I imagine like the only way they could figure it out is that it's going to have to be like number like 1,000 and like some number that they'll never use because it would be too complicated to like sort it out. I don't know. But yeah.
They give you like a vanity plate, but you're actually still just getting regular plates for
the yeah,
racing.
Maybe I could just have a plate that just says Peter and they just like, I just go to all the events with it. Yeah, well, no, they can decide what they want to do.
However they want to honor you is fine.
So we thought today, we're coming up on Molly's big race next week, but we'll do like a debrief on that, I guess, the Sulphur Springs. But if, as a reminder, if folks are around the Hamilton and Castor area, this is down towards Niagara. So maybe even you come across the border if you're up in the northern states. They have this big
crowds.
They need to come and watch this all-day running event. We'll try and I'm standing around all day, so I do try and do a bit of, I'm not going to say a live stream, but some updates along, of course, through the day. But if you are, ride over and try and find us. I'm usually just sort of standing at the top of Martin Road at the, what is that called? The Firestone Arena, Morgan Firestone Arena. So if you navigate to that, that's where it's all sort of happening. And that is next Saturday. What is the date on next Saturday?
The 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sort of hoping, I admit, with doing today's episode, which is sort of our what not to do on race day, that next week we can do more of a what to do on a race day to have the best race of your life, because we nailed it.
Yeah, and something this is like Molly would say in like journalism terms, you can either do like the best things to do for this or like the things you should definitely not do.
No one clicks on the things you should do.
Right, because you want to not do it. And sometimes that's like to chip away the things, like, because there's like a very wide hallway of what you can do, but there's like some things that are just not going to be good, right? And so these are like, sometimes you call this like an invariant where it's, you just, those don't do that. and things will go better. And this is a lot of coaching. You can't do things like that. There isn't like, you can't just, someone's sort of doing the thing and you got to actually like work on it. It takes work. There's some things you can sort of say like, these are, don't wear like a giant raincoat when you go to a hot mountain bike race. Like that would be something that would be obvious, but then some people might wear like a baggy coat. They think it's going to be cold or something, right? So there's some of these things that are maybe more like obvious don'ts. So we'll try and pick that out. But this doesn't mean that I'm better or that I don't screw up all of this stuff a lot of the time. But just things we noticed here at this most recent race, and hopefully will help you whatever you're doing as far as events this coming year.
Yeah, and first races of the season, and we'll even start with this. Honestly, they're tricky, right? You've kind of forgotten how to pack your race bag. You've forgotten where the bottles are supposed to go. You've forgotten just how long the day feels. You've forgotten, to check where the feed zone is. Not that I'm listing things that I definitely did in the last 2 days, but
well, and so that you're sort of touching on expectations. So we'll get into it. We'll do some ads here as we go through the day. But the first thing is sort of that expectation. So we did have a couple of athletes who this wasn't their first mountain bike race, but it was maybe their first Ontario Cup race. So now we're moving to like what would that be, a regional race or a provincial estate race, or just this could be the biggest gravel race. You've moved from like a local gravel race to one of these like big ones where like some fast people are there or a bigger number of people. So this is setting of expectations. Like this is complete before you compete is what we say, because you don't have expectations. Like you got to show up and see what it's all about. And you're going to feel like a dummy sometimes because you don't know what's going on. You don't know the norms of this type of racing situation. Of course, the course is going to seem overwhelming. The number of people is going to seem overwhelming. The length of the race is probably going to be overwhelming. It's just going to be a lot of overwhelming. And so the expectation is that this is going to be just a wild day and I'm just going to keep my head up and do the best I can.
Yeah. So as far as like setting your expectations, though, results wise, how do you think about that?
I don't think I would. Yeah, like this is you complete. I would like you to get through the race ideally, like in a safe manner. You might have to walk even. But yeah, I think this is, and anything better than that is you've exceeded your expectations. What a fantastic thing. Like it went better than I feared it would go.
Yeah. And I think actually I want to shout out our good friends Mike and Tori here, because I think they actually handled the race really interestingly. So Tori hasn't raced in a few years. They have young kids. And she said she showed up to the race, I think 20 minutes before the start.
Yep. No warm up.
And this would have absolutely ended most people, right? Like you would be in such a tizzy and so stressed out. Mm-hmm. Actually, this time last year, we almost did show up to a race pretty close to that because we got the time wrong.
Are you talking about nationals?
No, I'm talking about the race where we decided to go see a house the week before, or like the day of, and then we were
that one wasn't too bad,
but anyway, we were late. She rolled up, she got her number, jogged back to the car, got on her bike, went to the start, smiling the whole time, like had a great time, because her expectation was just, I'm gonna get in this race. It's local, it's here, it's easy. I'm going to get in, I'm going to have fun and see what happens.
Well, and Tori is Tori is like one of the most athletic people I think I've ever met.
There is that.
She was a gymnast, so she's like very adept at these types of things and has biked. But this is almost like another type of expectations where Tori has also raced, but then has been away. She's become a mother and like just wasn't, even training a ton. So it could have expectations that it should be like it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, like lots of us, right? You've gone away, you've come back, or you've gotten older or whatever, right? And so these expectations can be really tough. But if you do come in and yeah, I think this just like sort of showing up ready. Her bike was prepared, like everything was good to go. But then, yeah, just get in there and ride. You're just going to ride around the course 3 times and see some people and see what it's all about. And that sort of like guards you a bit from like, I've done all the preparation and now it needs to be like it was 10 years ago.
Exactly. So again, your expectations can look totally different. Your preparation can look totally different, as long as you're, I guess, like if you've connected your preparation and your expectations accordingly.
Well, and I think the preparations probably should be in there. Like, again, Tori's bike worked. I don't know how much she knew about like the general, but like they were there on time, and that like she didn't miss the start. Like she had enough time,
which we will get to.
So you want to be there, right? She was there for the staging. She was, that sort of stuff all went. They knew where the race was. They were familiar with the race. And that's another thing is like when we're coming back from something like Parenthood or something like that, we're trying to resume some of the easy races, even if it's not your favorite race or it's whatever, like sometimes being close, they were able to come from like the farmer's market and kids activities to that and then leave to go to more kids activities. So it's sort of a full day, but that sort of works nicely for those who have those really busy family schedules.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, so did we want any more on expectations? We do have a new parent. Is that what you had? Oh no, I had that. Okay. So yeah, so it's like sometimes it's not even that you're like new to the event, but again, the life has evolved a bit. And so we need to come into these. So we had one athlete who was pretty new baby in the house, and so not a ton of sleep. And I said, we don't need to think too much about like where exactly you're going to be on the start and that type of thing. Like just let's get in and like you've been training, so get in, but just it doesn't need to be so aggressive on the start, and just build through the day and let it be. Yeah, I picked people off throughout the race and they were all fading, and just let it be a race, right? Again, you got through it. Like that's sort of the main goal.
Well, and we've said this before, sometimes you just need to get the race starts under your belt, and it almost doesn't matter how the race itself goes, just getting those start line moments. We always say that's what I'm lacking for sure, because I hate start lines, so I avoid them like the plague, but really could use them, because now that we're a week out from my race, I am very stressed in a way that I would not be if I actually would just get on start lines more often.
Yeah.
Like at some point you have to do your first race back, right? Like assuming you're going to race again, you have two choices. You either never race again or you have to do that first race back. It's going to happen at some point.
Okay. So that's that. So then preparations, we talked about your bike is set up and ready to go. It's working really well, because if we can minimize that, you might have to hire someone to go over your bike if you don't have the time or knowledge. But these are things that make the race day go better. And yes, it could cost money or it could cost time, but eventually you're going to be on the side of the course if because your bike broke, and that's a waste of time. So we don't want to do that. So things like that, reading the tech guide is important so that you understand, or the race Bible, this might be called, where it gives you the details of the schedule. I had the schedule sort of screenshotted on my phone because I can never remember the different things. And I wanted to know when the different starts were for the different athletes I coach who were there, so I could sort of watch those. And also for things like the short track race, or even just warming up before our race, I like to get onto a bit of the course if it's allowed. So knowing when the races are going to be over or starting, so that you don't run into or affect another race, is important as well. So, but for short track, definitely you want to get on sort of like cyclocross where you're pre-ride. So you need to know the pre-ride windows. So that schedule is a very important thing to sort of have at hand. So I always screenshot that, so I have it like really on hand on my phone.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. On the note of pre-riding, though, I actually added that to it because I think there's a lot of things that you can do very wrong when it comes to pre-riding.
Well, this one's a weird one. I still don't know the correct answer. It depends a bit on the person and their fitness and where they live and when you can get there. But when they do have the two races, the short track the day before, this could be like a crit and then the road race, or this could be, I'm trying to think, like the gravel crits now, or the fat tire crits are becoming more popular in some of the gravel stuff and some of the mountain bike stuff. But when you have a short track and then you're going to do the cross country, it sort of puts a weird thing where when are you going to pre-ride if you can only have those 2 days? So I prefer to do it more as the warm-up on the Saturday, so that it doesn't get so late in the day.
So it's sort of your warm-up to the short track.
Yeah. And so I do think this informs training, where you need to be ready to do like a fairly big mountain bike ride, with finishing even with intensity in that, but also fueling throughout that pre-ride, which is good practice in general, but especially when you need to do a short track race at the end of it. So that would be one intricacy with this weekend that may apply depending on what folks have going on at their race day. But what else did you have as far as pre-riding?
Well, I think the number one thing, and this is a little bit more cyclocrossy than mountain bike, but I do think it's still quite relevant to mountain bike, is know what the pre-ride windows are, because sometimes these races are on private property where you can't just pre-ride whenever your heart desires. Or there's a lot of people that try to just jump on the course during the race and don't really think about the race that's happening, or just kind of in their own world and pretty unaware of what's going on. So I think having your sort of plan for when you're going to pre-ride, that actually you've looked at the tech guide and you know when it is super important.
Right. And then you said doing it stressed. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think there's the person who, screams in Saturday, like late in the day, their bike might not be prepared and they jump on the course anyway. And it's like this very stressful pre-ride where they're like trying to get it in. They're really freaked out about it. Right. They've almost like blown their like race day nerves out on the pre-ride. And, sometimes that can end with a crash or a mechanical or all that fun stuff. I think in a lot of cases, you're actually probably better not pre-riding in that case, just doing whatever ride.
Like an opener.
Just an opener type ride. And then the next day, just roll around to different sections of the course, talk to people, know what's going to be on the course.
Can walk up and see it a lot of times.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or ride up and just like look at something, if not ride it.
And then the other one I was thinking is like, if it is crappy out, like if the weather's bad the day before and you're pre-riding, just remember the damage it's potentially going to do to your bike, or at least like how grimy it's going to potentially make your bike. And if you're staying in a hotel near the race, for example, you may not have the ability to bike wash. So just knowing what you're going to do to get your bike ready from the like after the pre-ride for race day. So in some cases it may not actually make sense to do a pre-ride if you don't have the ability to clean your bike and get it prepared.
And I can think of like races in Quebec, especially where it just would be like so bad, like we're just raining and the course would just be, and you'd be like running already around the course in the pre-ride. And of course, it always changes. It either gets worse or it gets better because lines start forming or ruts start forming, or the rain changes one way or the other, and you're running more, you're running less. So like the pre-ride only mattered so much.
I recall we were on one coaching project there with young kids where we were at a hotel, and the hotel freaked out about us cleaning bikes there. Like it was almost impossible they barely let us have the bikes there, let alone cleaning and working on them. Right. And it became really, really difficult.
So this is where when we're going to talk a bit about fitness, like how is your fitness appropriate for the race? Do you fit the race? And that model of like, it's like a puzzle piece where fitness isn't just your FTP on your trainer. It's how well do you as an animal fit into that wild environment of mountain bike racing or gravel racing. And so when we get there, and Molly's saying like, oh, well, when we make this choice, that why we talk about this and the owls of fitting into this race of fitness, this is this concept that like when you're making a decision, you say, okay, I need to be the most ready I can given the environment, the situation, the context that I'm in today, pre-riding, day before the race. And so I can think about, I need to get my openers and maybe pre-ride the course. So we could say this is like a physiological and this is like a navigational elements of fitness, but you're forgetting about the mechanical, which for mountain biking is a very big deal. So if your bike does not work in some way, it's going to be a huge limiter. It doesn't matter if you didn't get your special openers in, right? Like you could do a run up some stairs in the hotel or something from a physiological. It's not hard to do that. And that's assuming you don't have rollers or something like that. You could also ride on. But yeah, thinking about these decisions and all of those owls that make up the fitness for the task. Now, if you're a road rider, the elements change. The owls change that really matter. But same deal. Like if your bike's destroyed, you're going to not have a great road race.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that was my thoughts on pre-ride.
Yeah, and so then when we're pre-riding, that sort of again relates to the preparation of knowing, is there a short track race that's interrupting the course, and are you okay with that, or do you want like a full pre-ride of the entire course? Like what type of person are you, and what knowledge do you have about that? But I definitely saw some people showing up and just being confused that there was short track racing, and it's like, well, why didn't you could have got there at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. to do the full lap?
Well, and our good friend who stayed with us did his pre-ride after the short track, and he was totally fine with it. That said, he's a teacher who often is doing activities after school. So for him, getting on the course at like 3:30 is completely normal. For you or I, we were like ready to go home and be done with our day because we tend to train earlier.
Well, and it's a sort of a fake rule I made, but I've always been just nervous if things start going late the day before. And so to me, it's like there's that 24-hour, and it's completely arbitrary, but just we are getting closer and closer to the next thing. So the closer you move them, the recovery just understandably is going to be more limited. Your body takes time to recover. We can do things like consume a meal soon after the ride to help restock the glycogen and recover. But especially as people get older, like myself, I had a short track race. It went fantastic on Saturday. I put in some really big digs, some big attacks, but that definitely like knocked me. I could feel the start. I did not have the digs anymore on the XC on Sunday. So had I pushed that later and later and later or not got the meal in, it's just going to get worse and worse. And especially again, as we get older, when you're a young kid, you can just do whatever you want for the most part.
Choco milk, skateboard home, you're good to go.
Well, the choco milk, you're hitting this is the idea, but some people don't even have the choco milk, right? So yeah, you just want to be careful that you bounce back fast enough. And this could just be the pre-ride if you're someone like mountain biking is hard. So getting around this course, especially, there's lots of climbing and bumping around. There's still a recovery demand for most people. And we'll get to that again. Like what is the demand of the race weekend versus your average day? And for a lot of people, that race weekend becomes like the biggest training they'll do
For sure. Well, and I also, okay, coming back to the stress, like I said, don't start it when you're super stressed out. I think there's a subset of people, I'm going to include myself here, where if you see something on the pre-ride, especially if you don't have time to session it or to like think about it, or you're not pre-riding, if I'm pre-riding by myself, I'm not with you and you're not going to be able to like take me through, here's the line. Honestly, I'm probably better off racing it blind and like with adrenaline and just taking a beeline or something if that comes up, versus me going out and like freaking myself out about it. Because I think slow speed, you tend to actually, like, if you're someone like me who's a little nervous about technical stuff, if you don't have the time or the bandwidth to actually like look at stuff on the course and be like, okay, here's what I can do, you're probably better just going into the race and figuring it out.
Right. Yeah. And have the ability you have. But yeah, you'd have to know who you are. My general rule is like race day, race weekend is not the time to learn something or to like really push your limits. And this again gets to what is training, what is your capacity, what is your fitness, your fit to the task. And if we get to the course and you find out like this course had I don't know how big the gap was, but it was a pretty good gap with like a drop to it. So you were in the air for what felt like a fair bit of time. And then you landed essentially in a left-hand corner into a very steep downhill. So lots of people just rode. There was a B line and a C line. B line really wasn't much different. This is just an alternative line that you just sort of rolled down some rocks. But yeah, like if it's a question, just don't do it. But then you need to remember that you don't know how to do airs, because eventually this may come up where you do need to do it and it would be a big consequence to not do it, right? So the race weekend isn't the time, but it is the time to say, oh, this is happening in races now. Like the trend now is that there are gap jumps in races that are going to save you a lot of time if you do them. So you need to do it. And I would say gravel's similar, right? It's like, well, at some point there's going to be essentially a mountain biking trail that you're on. So if you never go onto a mountain bike trail, that's going to be a big issue come your gravel race. So you do need to sort of edge out into it carefully in your training, but you want to be careful that that's not the first time you see it in race day. And if you do, you deal with it. But again, we try and keep continuously improving.
Right. Okay. So let's bring it into the warm up.
Okay. The main thing I saw is, people will get, this is the younger kids, like they're in their kit and it's a hot day, first hot day we had actually. So a lot of people were struggling a bit with the increased temperatures versus what they've been used to and living in. And so 2 hours before, they're in their kit, they're rolling around. I'm seeing them doing efforts and it's like, it's 2 hours still, like literally 2 hours before. So it's like, are you going to do a 2 hour warm up before an hour or a 90-minute race? Not usually, right? This is a lot beyond what someone would normally do. And it's definitely going to have consequences during the race. For a lot of these athletes, especially if you're not an elite athlete like Dylan, who I coach, he's used to doing 4 hours with intensity and then another day of 5 hours. So that load of that race day it's well within his normal day, but he is a professional bike rider. He trains at a very high level. For the younger athletes and certainly the working masters, this load of the day, this hour of mountain biking and then another hour of mountain biking and maybe a warm up, this is becoming much more than their average day. So when I say average day, all I'm really describing is what you might see as fitness score or that TSS number in Training Peaks, your average chronic training load, the fitness score. All that is your average day of load, intensity times time. And so it's sometimes we can't do anything about it. Your life is your life. You only have 4 hours to train in a week or 5 hours to train in the week, and only so much of it can be on a mountain bike. But that is the fit that we're looking for, is the closer we can get to that mountain bike race being more like your normal day. We're not saying mountain bike every day. We're not saying race every day, but that load and that terrain should become more and more familiar so that we're not just dropping you into, I love that analogy of the zoo animal. We have it was a really sad story actually, but like a humpback whale and they tried to save it and then didn't
whale
work out.
Stories with you.
Yeah. But I always think about like Free Willy and he had the fins start folding over and they only go in the one direction in the pool and they really know how to hunt and get their own food. And then they say, well, we need to free them, which is a good idea, but the animal doesn't know how to survive, right, in the wild. So it doesn't go great. So it's a little morbid, but that's what happens. If we only ride on, think about it, the indoor trainer, we're in a little cage in our basement, and then we get released into the mountain bike thing where there's all these people who are trying to pass you, and there's all these rocks and these jumps, and we're working really hard, and there's climbs, and there's ups, and there's downs, and bumps, and so you can see how this is very shocking to us and very overwhelming.
The fact that they made movies like Free Willy and then they're confused why a bunch of us are like kind of tree hugger, whale hugger type people is really
Yeah, probably 50% of the times I cry in a year are related to orca whales for some reason.
Mostly whales.
Damn, that was a great movie. I probably wasn't, but...
Yeah. I've never seen Free Willy.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the docket.
No, I don't think I could handle Free Willy. There's a reason I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so for warm up, and then otherwise, I think it's the mistake people make. Like if someone asks, like, what should I do for a warm up? It's sort of like, well, I've failed because I haven't really pointed out that it's sort of like the general thing we do to warm up for interval days or practice races. This is what you would want to do. Some people are a bit more particular, but the idea is just that you're getting warm. So and maybe you're getting like a couple practice start efforts or activation efforts or sprints, whatever you want to call them. And so it's really just being ready for the start of the event or the first critical moment in the race. And the warmth is the thing. So, and it's a cyclocross race or a spring race and it's colder, it takes more to get warm. So you need to overdress or dress appropriately. And then you may need to do more efforts or more time. On a day as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, you barely need to warm up. It's maybe like an activation sprint and 5 minutes of spinning, 10 minutes of spinning, and then trying to stay cool and shade and ice on your face and your neck just to try and trick your brain into that it's not super hot and prolong the time till you get overheated, right? So that's sort of the name of the game. So when we do something like this and you see people warming up for 2 hours, maybe it's part of their training, but I doubt it most of the time. Usually it's nerves. They start seeing other people getting going and they end up overheated and just burning energy.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. And that leads into the staging and start time. And I think the number one do not do is not knowing what time staging begins. So I don't say when start time is. I mean, when staging begins. And I think warm up rolls into this because a lot of the time when people miss their staging, it's because they didn't really realize that staging typically happens like 15, 20 minutes before your race starts. So they're thinking, oh, I warm up until 5 minutes before my race.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then show up and are very confused why everyone is already lined up.
So really knowing the start time. Again, we've screwed this up over the years.
Set alarms, set reminders on your phone, on your computer, on your watch, whatever you need to do.
And then however you warm up. So like Dylan warmed up on the road. He doesn't like to do a lot of mountain biking before. I prefer now as I've gotten older that I really like to be mountain biking. So we have a warm-up loop called Adventure Awaits at this where we were at Highlands. This is our local club trails as well. So I know it well. And I get to do jumps. So it was like there's an effort on two sides of this little course. It was, I don't know how long it would be, like a kilometer or a mile. And then I get to do a bunch of warm-up jumps. And I just always feel like I'm more coordinated. Historically, I just like make mistakes on the first lap, partially because you're drilling it, but also just like I always felt like I just wasn't coordinated. So I just try and get ready. And I do a couple of warm-up efforts, try and get my heart rate up towards the race average, which is a rough rule of thumb I use. But the loop there, which I try and do this when I'm warming up at places, is it's just I can see the start line and hear the announcer at times. And so you can start seeing when people are congregating. And then I also have my clock. And when we get about 20 minutes, and again, know the race. Some races it's half an hour. Some races it could be even more. Some races they're running it really tight. But I knew at this race they were like almost running 5 minutes behind a lot of times. And that I was probably going to get some sort of call up as well. So these things sort of triangulate the tactics and how close to the start you can run your warm up, because you sort of want to be close with your warm up and sort of like ready to go. Your heart rate's maybe even a bit up, but it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you just have to stand there for 30 minutes and just try and stay as cool and relaxed as you can. So it sort of depends.
This is why you see people at races like World Cup mountain bike, any cyclocross races, even local cyclocross races. You see people on their trainers, like
and
over
a lot of
by
the younger, a lot of the younger, like really high performance juniors, they're doing that. They have a bit of team support, family support. So and I think that's a fantastic. I completely understand it. I've come from a different age and I just prefer to ride my bike outside when I can ride it outside. But I think that trainer setup is great, especially for the cyclocross or busier venues that are more in the city, especially where there just isn't a great place. Maybe you're going to risk a flat. Like there is downsides to riding around, obviously, but so then they're sitting there and then they hop off probably, and maybe they even do a couple of warm up things or some turns on their bike before the start, but then they get there in time to either get called up, or what we're waiting for is that inevitable and the rest of the field, and then everyone surges to the pen. And what you would ideally be, if we're thinking about a performance, a position, is that you would want to be as close to the front as you can. Now, if you're one of these first timers or nervous about the start or first time back after a baby or whatever, then you could actually just warm up and be even sloppier and just like warm up, come to the back of the group, and away you go, and then pick your way through the field. And that's that. Whatever your strategy, your tactic, your expectations are going to inform that. But you can't miss the start, and you don't want to be like stressed that like, oh, they're starting and I missed it.
That's what I was just going to say. Even if you are planning on being the, like, I'm just going to roll into the back, I don't really care about my staging. A lot of these races do, in fact, stage multiple categories at once. So, again, don't think that you can show up just like 1 minute before your start, because you probably will have to like duck around a bunch of other groups of racers. So in your race, I think there were 5 fields in that race time.
Yeah.
So if you were an elite man and you were, not stressed about your result, you're going to like roll in towards the end, you still would have had to be there 8 minutes before your start time to get that, like, and the rest of the field can roll up, because behind them, the juniors staged, behind them, the elite women staged, So you can't, even if you're not planning, like, even if you don't care about where you're starting, you still need to be there early enough to get into your correct placing.
Right. So be on time.
Yeah. Don't be that guy that's like, there's always one freaking guy.
Always. And wants to be on the front row.
Yeah, wants to be on the front row. He's like walking through, like elbowing people out of the way.
And we're going to talk a bit about that in a second here, and how we get to that position in life. But I wanted to say, what was I going to say there? Sorry, I've interrupted you, and I don't even know what I'm going to say.
Which I think actually speaks very well to the next point,
so I'm the guy that comes late to the...
You're the problem. It's you.
Sometimes.
I have never seen you be late to a start.
Not really. And if I do, I usually don't care that much. Like, I'm just sort of like, I'll just start third row and figure it out. Because it mostly, like, you sort of find the place in the race you are. Like, unless you're really unless this is a shorter race and like a very competitive, it does matter. Like, it certainly is a predictor. If you were at a World Cup, you would ideally not be on the third line. So we said the time and then the rest of the field, and that's the idea. So then the other thing, I guess, is like, this is more for parents, coaches. When I was coming up, one of our good friends and sort of a coaching mentor as well as a good friend, he sort of said, like, you can't really say anything good at a start line to people. And like, all you're going to do by being there is, like, he said, like, eat an SHIT sandwich. So I always think about that, like, don't eat an SHIT sandwich. And so what I try and do is just like, you're good. And then I'll like give them Nux. So we just like, what is Nux called? Like DAP, and this.
What?
Yeah, it's like...
He means a fist bump.
Yeah, okay, that too. And so, yeah, just, are they good? If they have the athlete will say, like, oh, I don't have wheels or something, and then you can help them out. That would be helpful. But, like, you cannot say, like, last-minute tips or, like, watch that guy beside you. And certainly with, like, your energy, like, it needs to be confident, but, like, just fade away and step back. And what I saw this weekend was just, like, a lot of parents and coaches are just... It's so intense. Like, they're so close. Like, just check in, whatever you have decided and what the routine is with your young athlete, but then step back, like way back, like just get out of the way. It's not on you anymore. Now this is their race. Like, let them go and let the commissars take it. Now there was a bit of a conflict, we'll say, at the line with this one. And like, one of the younger women was like, sort of missed her call up. This was sort of like a mixed field. So she ended up on the second row, and then everyone was upset, and I get it, but like, she just wasn't there for the start. And so then they ended up, one of the guys actually like just like gave up his spot and sort of went back. So it all worked out, but it got pretty intense there. And I guess like what my feeling was that, like, at any other race, I have never seen them adjust it if you miss that. And I'm sure in the series of things, like, they could have like slowed it down and like made sure everyone did show up. But the way the commissar will generally do it is, if you're not there when your name gets called for that call up, no, like, and they move to the next one, and they do leave a pause. But if you're not there, I have never seen that in an elite race where they've like rearranged the start grid once you miss it. Like, if you miss an official like the 8 like lanes, you're going to you have to take the second row. So I just thought that was like like, we're just getting a little too hands-on. And I'm sure if parents are listening, I know some of them do. Like, it's not that I think anyone did anything wrong or it was like incorrect. Like, we should support the young women 100%, but just, we want to be careful that, like, sometimes this is like a learning for everyone. And if there's like something on the backside, but I've never like that, like it was just that one young gentleman who just like went out of his way to like let her in.
Which is nice because I'm sure everyone in those first 2 rows was incredibly stressed at that point.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like it disrupted for and that's what I mean. Like it was just like all the kids are like, oh, and then like all the adults are slowly like tasting blood almost. Like it's pretty intense. So I think it's one of those things where like sometimes these things happen and it's fine. Like second row is pretty good.
This is why at World Cups and stuff, like to even get near the start line, you have to have your like credentials and stuff. So it's mostly just team support that can be by them. And I think it's actually like pretty protective to everybody, like the athletes, the parents, etc. And you know, it's all learning. Like none of this is like people doing things wrong. It's more just like, okay, for next time, we know we need to get to the start earlier. We need to, you know, the parents need to kind of like maybe just as soon as they're dropped off, like kid has everything they need, like you've taken all the clothing, the extra bottles, whatever, like it's time to walk up further on the course so you can get pictures of the start.
Yeah, and I said to you, like, definitely we need to, especially those mixed starts, like I can see how it would be hard for a young woman to like elbow through all the little, whatever, junior or whatever they are, tiny boys. So I get that. And there's probably support there that we could give. But it's also like, that was my advice to Hannah, who had a great race. She won, I don't know, I get so confused about how they're doing the categories, but the young women's race. And so I said, like, you need to be ready to scream at grown men. Like, just, this is like, for this to go well today, and it went well. I don't know if she actually screamed at any grown men as they went through them. But it is just that it is a part of women's racing, is that there's going to have to be loud voices and like some elbows like up there. And so it's like, where do we do the support and the learning, right? And I guess that's the ultimate question. Like we all want everyone to do well, but that's the thing, is like, where do we take in the learning and do this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay. So that's our staging and start line.
I guess I should also say that I also had another athlete who did miss his in the Masters, and I doubt he got even close to the front line, right? And like there was no accommodation made because he missed that as well.
Yeah. So again, know your start time, know when they're staging. And if they don't have when they're staging, it's not always written in the tech guide. But
no, you have to watch. Yeah.
Pay attention to the race before yours. Mm-hmm. And time. Okay, when did they call them to staging? Oh, it was 20 minutes before? Okay, so at 25 minutes before, I need to be like finishing my warm up and like ready to roll.
And that's, again, this is not like someone like we took our friend Tori who just showed up and raced. This isn't relevant to her expectations, but for me, with my expectations, like I want to keep up with the young athlete. It gets increasingly hard. So I watch as many of the starts as I can. I watch how the commissar's doing it. I watch, do they have tells when they do their whistle, like puffing their cheeks really big, like this situation was this weekend for sure. Right. So they're just like these little hints, but you also want to know like where, if I can choose where I'm lining up on the line, which side seems like safer, faster, smoother, whatever. The start, like where are the big junctions where everything comes together and there might be a crash, or if you were outside, maybe you scoot around and past everyone. And if you see that twice, then it's like, oh yeah, maybe if I go on the right on the outside, I'm going to scoot around everyone. So just all these little bits of information that the more intense and the more serious you are, like these are the things, right? These are what the smart races. If you watch, there's going to be like the top races are often just like sitting there at 9 or 10 a.m. or whenever, watching what goes on with the races, or even just the live stream they might watch from home at like a World Cup.
Yeah, this actually reminds me when I was talking to Andrew Lesperance, one of Canada's best like off-road riders. We were talking for an article, and he was talking about fueling and taking in a gel kind of like right before the start. But what he was talking about was really like, what can you control? How can you give yourself even the illusion of control? And I think actually like the staging area, that is probably one of the few places in the race that you truly do have some control over, or at minimum, like feelings of control over, right? Like you can be in control of your schedule and when you get to the start and where you plan to go on the start line. So all of that can really help lower your stress in the race. If you're someone like me who gets very stressy before the race, having all that stuff dialed in can be very helpful.
Okay. This isn't, I guess, staging. I don't know why I put it in this section, but it's here.
I put it in this section.
Oh, okay. So like the other thing as we're warming up or pre-riding would be just sort of like forming a plan if you do have people feeding you, but however you're getting the feed zone, the tech zone, the neutral feeds, and something like an unbound or whatever, is just knowing what the plan is. And so I went up, and this one had like a double-sided
Yeah, which I did not. It took me. So there were very few people in the other side of the text zone. So I thought when you said it that you just meant that they were lining both sides.
Right.
So I was very confused. I thought that was going to be a down and back text zone. Like I thought it was all that one part, but it actually was on the other side of the trees. But I didn't notice that till people were yelling.
So often there's multiple text zones. This one is just like they're in the same place, just the course goes back and forth along its side, once coming down and once going up. So I said like uphill is generally a nicer place.
Oh, so I got the right one?
Yeah. The uphill on the way out is often nice. Like if you could take something more on a downhill section like after you've climbed, but in a mountain bike race it's just like you're descending very quickly. Like I was coming through like the other feed zone arrow tucked going like 50 kilometers an hour. It felt like 50 was probably 30. So that's just not a great place to take a feed. But I saw people like having to almost stop, and then it was also like a lot of times a left-handed feed, which is clunkier if you're not great with your left arm, which is true of a lot of people. So I said line up on the right on the uphill and I will get it on the way out, which worked great. It was very easy feed.
Good, because I totally guessed on where to be. But that's actually what I was going to say, that if I was to redo it, I would have actually made sure that you and I walked up there together and you said, here's where to go.
Mm-hmm. And if this was a first time, I know for one of the athletes I coached, this was his first O Cup, his wife's first time doing any of this. And she was so I sort of like moved her during the race. I said, oh yeah, okay, like this is actually really confusing because there's like you could do left or right side of both sides of the double feed zone. And I said, okay, well, on the next time around, let's like move over. We'll tell him as he goes by that like the next one's going to be on the uphill side, and then it's going to be just chill for everyone. We can keep, this is good. So understandably, that was like a confusing thing and a good learning, right? Like again, when we go to these first events, we're just trying to be sponges and learn, right? Like it doesn't need to be perfect at all. Like the more mistakes you make, the more learning you're going to have. So that's it. Be a sponge, right? But because we know, like if I came around and was like, where's the feed zone? And just like screaming, that would be odd as I asked for my 25-year commemorative plate.
It's true.
Right. Okay. So that's the feed zone. And then just if you can't take a feed while you're rolling in races, and this probably applies to any race, some races you do stop, and that's fine if there's enough stuff you need to pick up. But if you do have trouble taking one hand and certainly one hand, but like also probably two hands off your bars and riding, this is just a great skill. And when we talk about skills, everyone thinks like, I mean, backflip, but no, there's like all the stuff that just involved with like riding a bicycle well. And the better you get at one hand and two hand riding, you're going to see your cornering go better. Your balance is better. Like, so it's just going to translate to everything. But also when we're specifically thinking about feeding, when I have to take a gel, I go no hands, I take it out, I'm stretching my back. I can use both hands to open the gel. I like open it, I can sort of squeeze it out. Like there's just a lot you can do when you have both hands available. And then it's also just very nice for your neck and your back and your arms, your shoulders to just ride no hands for a little bit. And for gravel endurance racers, this is really important. But mountain biking, we're doing this. A good rider would be hands coming off all the time, adjusting the glasses, gels, just sweat off the face, taking the glasses off. There's just all these things that like you need to be doing. So if you do find taking a bottle is hard, then there's lots of games and ways we can practice this, but the easiest is just as you're riding along a smooth, safe gravel path or whatever, just easing into one-handed and two-handed riding.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about with the feed zone too, so it got surprisingly warm yesterday. Like people were expecting it to be much cooler than it was. It got warm. I would not say it got hot, but I would say it got warm. And the amount of panic that I saw in the feed zone because it was a little warmer than anticipated was, again, early in the season. So we totally understand it. It makes sense. But I think in the do not try to like change everything because the weather has slightly changed. Like you should have a plan for what you do when it's warm out and like maybe shift to that plan. But I saw a lot of people coming through and their feeders would be like, did you want water and a gel? Did you want sugar powder in your water? Kind of asking them. And at no point should you be asking your racer what they want in a 90-minute race.
The dowsing stuff like you can do. I wouldn't like it sort of depends. Like where the bigger teams sort of clubs doing that. Yeah. I mean, if you have people that can go and get water and ice, like it's fine. But yeah, you don't want to like complicate it too much. And certainly I would not do at this level of racing, at least, like do you want sugar water or water? Like the athletes should sort of have that planned out beforehand. And we just had this Leadville podcast where he was saying like the athlete should decide what's in. I have one of those old, I guess they're old, like Coke. They hold 6 Coke bottles. So they're like an old sort of handle thing. And usually when I'm having someone, I think just carried my 2 bottles. Oh no, you carried the whole thing up. So I just said, just give me these 3 bottles at some point. And I had a little bit of order because I did want a big water one to do some dousing on myself. But again, I thought that out. You were not really, like, you knew generally that the middle one was a big water one. But that was all on me, right? It's my race. You're just passing me the water. There's not really a lot else.
And I do think dousing is great, but if you haven't done it before and you are someone who struggles with like hands off the bars or any kind of just like stimulus, it can actually be.
Oh, it's really, yeah, it's a great feeling, but it's akin to jumping into a lake, like a cold lake, and then it takes your breath away for a second if it's really cold. So sometimes when people dump on you and it's really cold and you're not really expecting it, it can like almost knock you off your bike.
Yeah. Well, or, it gets on your glasses. So now your glasses are wet, or just any number of like little things. Not to say don't do it, but maybe that's the kind of thing, practice it beforehand. And you can do this literally in your backyard, right? Like have someone spray you down with the hose while you're like riding through. Practice the grabbing the bottle and like dropping your bottle and stuff.
Well, and it is, again, when we think about the environment that you're training in, you're fit for the race, like most of my calculus, which for the last 2 years hasn't paid off, but is that like most of the key races are done in hot environments. Remembering too that like the effort you're putting out, and especially as people get more and more power basically and bigger people, there's just more and more heat generated. So even the ambient temperature, like it's 20 degrees or 70 degrees depending on the system you use, yes, warm, but also like the harder and harder you're working, there's more and more heat being generated just from the work that you're putting out. And so you're going to be sweating. You've felt this before. You sweat when you exercise vigorously. And so the cooling is something that we can then practice these cooling strategies. We've had Dr. Stephen Chung on the record amount, I think 4 or 5 times now on the podcast. Often we're talking towards heat, training in the heat, performing in the heat, performing in the cold weather. But he definitely talks towards cooling strategies as well. So not the heat adaptation before the race, but race day, what are our cooling strategies that we can use? But like any strategy we use, it should be done in training. So what I usually do is on the hot days, I still go and train. Sometimes it's early in the day, sometimes it's in the heat of the day. But what I'll start with is like a frozen, usually just a throwaway plastic bottle type thing with a bunch of ice. And I'll keep that on the back of my neck for my pre-cooling, sort of like the warm up at my race where I do my warm up and I do my couple of efforts. And when I feel like I'm ready, then I say, okay, that's enough warm up. And then that water has mostly melted because it's very warm and I'm getting very warm. And then I have this cold water that I can douse myself with in the first couple of intervals of the day, say, to try and prolong the time till I overheat and keep that perception of heat down. And so this would be like a low budget way that you could just practice, but also your workout hopefully goes better and you cope with the heat that you're dealing with in that training day.
Love it. Love it. Okay. What's next?
Well, let's touch a bit more. We've sort of talked around the training, like, are you in shape? We heard a couple people say like, oh, my dad's not in shape or something like that, which is sort of
shout
funny.
out to those kids.
Molly had her book set up, the Strong Girl Publishing, one of the title sponsors of the event as well, along with Collingwood Collective and our Escarpment magazine. I keep forgetting to mention Escarpment magazine, so if you're in Collingwood, kudos to Escarpment magazine for supporting this local event. And
Summit Social House, who had their coffee set up, free coffee, directly next to the tent, so I was over-caffeinated the entire weekend.
That's right. So training like you're in shape. So when you say you're in shape, that's sort of what I'm looking for then is like, again, that we talked about that environment. Like, are you used to being in the environment? And it's not always possible, but those are the signs that like, oh, your training could be better. And this could be because it's been winter and really cold and you haven't been able to ride your mountain bike. And then this is the first mountain bike race. So we have some expectations. I haven't been on my mountain bike very much. This is the first mountain bike of the year. Let's take it easy on ourselves. We'll do the best we can. We'll learn. And then the next race is going to go better. This is why we do a race or two, ideally, before you do that big A race, your priority race. We ideally would not roll into the national championships or the state championships without racing beforehand. So when you get there and you say, oh, there's jumps. I never do jumps. Okay, well, don't do the jump in the race. That's not a great way. Like sometimes it works out, but I would say that good, especially for the adults in the room, this is probably not a great strategy. But now Can I take a skills session? Can I go to a jump clinic? Can I just line up a couple of small little things and try and get some air in training away from the exertion and stuff? But then for the more advanced athletes, this is where we want to embed that into. So when I do intervals, it's often at the venue we were at, honestly, like up the steep hill. Often it's like, a nice double track where I can put out great power, and then right into the technical single track with the jump, with the drops, with all this stuff, right? So the more we can make the training look like the race, and this is periodization, as we get out of the winter, as we get closer to the key race, it should look a lot like that race. And this is it. So when you're thinking about, am I fit? Is my training appropriate? Think about all those elements, the psychological, the navigational, the mechanical, all these things, psychological, taking the notes from that.
Love it. Okay. And do you want to talk about daily load, or where are you at with that?
Well, maybe just, again, we touched on that, but I think that's important to think, like, if you are just knackered after a race, or it just like you get halfway through and it's too much, like what almost without fail, you either went way, way too hard to start, which you see that some of the younger athletes went with, like Dylan and Tyler, who are good, like they're very, very fit. And so the more local, the younger athletes want to keep up, they can keep up. The younger athletes can often go the same speed as an elite rider for a bit, the first climb, but then reality sets in that they don't have that base of fitness, the years of experience and fitness and age that have built up in two athletes like this, right? Those athletes are approaching that 28 to 32, sort of like what we would expect. Like they've put in 10 years of at least of volume, right? At least those two have been riding forever. So then the answer is, can you train more? This might be just that 3-hour ride on the weekend, which is going to be better now that the weather's available. It might be, have you been mountain biking with hills, with rocks? And that's often the gap for athletes. They can't get to a mountain bike trail. They're working all the time. The daylight can be a factor earlier in the year. But the more we can get intervals outside, maybe one long ride on the weekend on our mountain bike, and then one long sort of gravel road ride on the weekend, this is where we can start raising that load, but also moving beyond just watts, or beyond like that simple metric of how long did you train and how hard was it. We also want to think about the environment again, all those factors that come into the race day, and how can we embed some of those into the thing. So can I ride with a friend, right? Like Dylan and I did 4 or 5 laps on Friday, and we just chatted the whole time. We didn't do any efforts. We were working, like it's mountain biking, but again, for Dylan, that was like an easy training day because it's 2 hours of mountain biking, but he does 4 hours and 5 hours rides, and much harder, right? Because he was letting me keep up with him. So, right. So this is the thing, is like, how can we get you closer to the race day demands? And for the working person, this is probably like a little bit of intervals. Maybe that's on the trainer midweek, then maybe a longer mountain bike ride and a longer road gravel ride on the weekend, sort of like your intervals on the mountain bike. And I usually, as we get into the season, keep that really specific. So it might even be like 4x8 off-road TTs, or some VO2 work on the mountain bike, so you're going really fast, but then again, getting the technical work in there as well, and maybe a bit of time on the mountain bike, because we can't do that during the week all the time. And then again, not overlooking the value of just that. It doesn't look like the race, but the work capacity, the endurance is what a lot of us are missing. So that like 2, 3, 4, maybe the odd 5-hour endurance ride is like, it's just, there's no way getting around it. That's going to be a good thing if you can sort of keep that in the routine.
Love it. Okay. And then do we want to talk post-race?
We can, yeah. Especially like, were you thinking more like when there's a double, or just like more the reflection?
I think just the reflection.
Yeah. So that, afterwards you maybe feel bummed and you're like, oh, I wasn't the winner. And again, we go back to those beforehand. Was it a complete before you compete?
Were you bummed?
Was I bummed? No, I think like I had a really solid weekend. Yeah.
You had a great weekend. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have really. I think I did pretty much what I could do. There wasn't a lot of, there was like I lost focus on the second last lap and almost like wrecked pretty hard into a berm. Like I sort of just like, my tire rolled and the suspension sort of like went down, and then like it almost like all buckled on me, and it was like, it could have been a good one actually. So that was just, and I was just starting to like zone out and start thinking about the finish, and like, it's almost like giving up on I was trying to catch what would he have been, third place, I guess. And I thought was going to get him on the last lap, and then he sort of like accelerated again. I couldn't do it. So I was sort of just like, I guess it's all over. And then it almost was all over. So.
Actually, you and I have talked about this, and maybe the other do not do while you're racing is I'm really bad for this, starting to kind of like future cast to be like, when it's over, I will, or like after the finish, I will. Because yeah, especially in a short race, it gets you distracted. I mean, I say I do it in 100 milers because I'm like, oh, in just 10 hours, I'll be snuggling with my dog on the couch and it'll be great. And sometimes that's actually kind of like affirming because I'm like, oh, it's only 10 more hours of this. I can totally do this. But in a 90-minute all out race, you can't lose that focus. No. So you need to know what type of focus is required for the race that you're in, and like be prepared to, as soon as you see this is where meditation maybe comes in, right? Like you get used to your mind is wandering, you bring it back. Mind is wandering, bring it back.
Well, in intervals, right? You're going to experience this in your training, whether it's a long ride or a hard interval set, and you start doubting yourself and you want to go home. Oh, 4 is enough, but you had 5, but you just don't want to do the 5th one, right? And maybe the 5th one's going to be a little not quite as fast, but it's okay because that's what like mountain bike racing is like. It's really hard at the start and then you just sort of do the best you can for the rest. And that's what everyone's mostly doing. So yeah, just going back, and I always use that cue of what's next. And I just stopped thinking about like the Rudy descent into like the high speed left-hander that I was about to cave my face into. So just, okay, got to go back and like keep refocusing and keep working on that. So yeah, I think that's like the reflection then post is like, okay, well, what now? What are some of the things I want to work on? Like what didn't I do well? Was there a certain like corner, a certain jump, a certain drop? Was there a moment, a critical moment where the race could have gone different, but you made a bad decision or messed up, right? Did you hit your pedal on something or slide out and then the person got away? Okay, well, was there a cornering thing or was that like an intensity thing? And then that what we just were talking about around the work capacity and the volume. And for a lot of people I work with, it hasn't been summer. It hasn't been the time and the daylight and the weather to ride outside and do all these great things. And so you don't beat yourself up about it. It was the first race and now do it. Right? Like that's the thing. Now get out on the gravel, get out on the mountain bike, get out on the riding with people or whatever the thing is, the intervals on the local hill or whatever it is you need to work on. But yeah, sort of just going through like, where could I have gotten a little bit of more speed? Sometimes these are seconds, sometimes it's minutes, right? Did I stop in the tech zone? Did I stop rather than taking the bottle feed? Was I sort of sitting up and just drinking rather than drinking in places where the bike's already moving fast? Did I drop a water bottle? Did I whatever, right? Did I make a bad choice on my start position? Did I miss my start, right? There's just all these things and they're not bad, but just thinking like, if we needed to do this again today, what would you do differently? Those are sometimes a good question. And then remembering the good things, right? Like how did your carbs and your fueling strategy go? How did you ride something really well? Did you hit it every time? Did you do a race? I remember the first time I was like, did a race without unclipping. And I was like, oh wow, I never had to like unclip that whole race. Right. And so it's like at some point, I guess before that, I would have had to put my foot down more often. And then I was like, oh, wow, I did the whole thing and I didn't have to run up anything or anything like that. Right. And these are like the little wins along the way that you also want to certainly mark down and celebrate.
Yes. So our do not do is don't beat yourself up or only beat yourself up post race. It's also, reflect on the positives. And I mean, if there's a couple things that you can improve on, fantastic.
Well, you hope there would always be, right? That's the trouble with like winning or sometimes when these categories are really like...
Right, winning sucks.
When they're sparse, right? You don't often get like I didn't get pushed, so then you don't really know. You don't have the feedback of like, yeah, the person went by me when I did that. Like that line actually wasn't that fast because I got passed on it. If you're just winning by a minute, you can take whatever line you want and it probably works out because the gap's so big. So that's when athletes really get that like really good challenge. Even if you don't win, I'm always just so excited because it's you can see, like you can test things. In the women's short track, I was just so excited. Like I don't even care how it went, but it was just they were riding as a group of 5 for all the laps, the full 20 minutes. And then there was like an attack and an attack and attack. And then like there was 4 on the same team. And then the one Collingwood rider, she like couldn't get into the middle of the group. So she kept getting, if you're on the back of a group, you start finding out that you're getting like that elastic effect. And so you're having to do more accelerations than the people at the front. So you want to get into the group, but then the teammates weren't like really letting her into so it was this like fight and try and get onto the wheel. And so you can just see them like thinking and trying to solve it. And like, okay, next lap, I'm going to try this. And it's just such a rich like learning environment. So it's just really, really cool to see. So even if they didn't win, right, it's just such a success for their development.
100%. Okay. Anything else to add or should we wrap up there?
No, I think we've done a lot of that. I think, again, if you're out there, I think it's fantastic. I think maybe the only other thing is just reminding yourself of like other reasons that you do it, right? The winning, the having a personal best, the having a good race is one thing, but then making sure that there is other stuff that you're doing, meeting people, connecting with friends, maybe a fun pre-ride. Just like, why do you do it? Like, what's the intriguing thing for you? Sometimes I find people will get there, they'll be really intense and like in their own world and never talk to anyone else. And some people can do that, but a lot of those people I feel like end up not liking racing in the end. It gets too stressful. They're too in their head. And it's like the only reason they're doing it is maybe for that result. But then when the result's not there or the group's more competitive, it's sort of like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. So just trying to think, yeah, like, can you meet some people and like connect with people more?
All right. Well, I am nice and stressed for my race this coming weekend. Before we wrap up, quick thank you to our sponsors over at Payable. So if you ever want to take a payment and you don't feel like creating a whole new website, whole new flow to do that, you can now take payments in a Google form with the Payable add-on. And this is a company founded by two of our really good friends. So it is not like a fake AI thing to be nervous about. It is actually genuine people on the other end, and they've done something really, really cool and made collecting payments very, very easy. So check it out at payableapps.com/athlete to get our favorite templates so you can get started in like 2 minutes. All right, with that, let's wrap up. Happy racing to anyone who has a race this weekend. And I know a couple of you listening do show up to Sulphur Springs, are racing Sulphur Springs. So A, good luck. And B, if you see us out there, say hello. All right. Happy training. See you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.